Hi, welcome to Glow's Kindred Kitchen, and I'm Glow. I'm so glad you're here today. Well, it's fall, and this time of year is just really special for all of us as far as food that we're harvesting. And what I'm going to start doing is to be making sides that people might want to use for their Thanksgiving meal. And today I'm starting off with sweet potato casserole that I have a recipe for. And what I have found is the key to making a really good sweet potato casserole is to bake your sweet potatoes first. So that's what we're going to do first. And I purchased 3 pounds of sweet potatoes for us. And over here, I'm going to wash up my last sweet potato. I've already washed these and I greased them a little bit. I have my oven preheating already to 350 degrees, and this will take about 45 minutes to an hour in the oven. So let me go ahead and finish washing this one. And I always use a vegetable fruit brush. And this one I like because it fits in the palm of your hand and it's made from palm leaves.
Where'd you get that, Miss Glow?
I got it on Amazon.
Where else?
And I always just shake it out, and then I have a little dish over here that I put it in. I've had them for a few years already, and it's lasted this long, and I use it a lot. So I'm going to go ahead. I have some canola oil down on my aluminum foil here, and I'm just going to finish greasing that one. Let me finish these two. I had put grease on them, but it looks like it's already gotten absorbed into the skin. So let me wash my hands to get the grease off. I always have a sink here with some warm soapy water, and it comes in very handy when you're cooking. Okay, so I'm going to dry my hands off. And then I'm just going to take a little paring knife, and I'm going to just poke some holes in the potatoes, and that way it allows the steam to release from the potatoes as they're baking. That way they don't explode on you. You just really need to do it, you know, in a few spots on both sides. But this dish that we're going to be making today with these sweet potatoes, you can make anytime. It's just very good. So, but again, the key is to bake your potatoes first. So let me wash my hands again because I got some oil on them. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these in the oven for about 45 minutes to an hour at 350 degrees, and I'll see you back in a while. Bye. Hi, well, the sweet potatoes are done. I just removed them from the oven, and you can see how some of the juice is coming out of them. And I'm going to go ahead and poke my fork in. It comes out very easy. I had them in here for 55 minutes. Some of them are a little bigger than others, like this one here. So I just wanted to make sure, and you can see here how this one is more done than these. But they'll finish cooking as they're cooling. So now what I need to do is let these totally cool, and then we'll be doing our sweet potato casserole. We'll put it all together today so that it's ready to bake tomorrow. See you back in a bit. Hi, well, welcome back. Our sweet potatoes have cooled off really nice, and we just need to go ahead and peel the very last one. And I thought I would do that with you, so in case somebody hasn't peeled a baked sweet potato, you'll know how. I usually take the end that where it's a little bit like there's something that has grown out of that. That's where the plant was. And I just peel it starting from that direction. And usually if you have some strings, it's going to be on this end. I don't feel any on that one, but I did have some on this end. There definitely was some that are more coarser and like rough strings, but this one is not as bad. But you can see how easy it is to get that peel off. Now when you do sweet potatoes, of course you can peel them and cook them on your stove, or you can peel them and roast them in the oven like with other veggies. But there's so many different ways. You can boil it with the skin on and then peel it that way. But for this particular dish, roasting is the best because it adds a lot more flavor to your sweet potato casserole. So anyway, I've gone ahead and put all 5 of them in here. Let me just wash my hands real quick. My warm salty water. Rinse my hands. And this is a very easy one to put together. I'm just going to move this out of the way. And this is easy cleanup too because I'm just going to fold up this foil with the peels inside and there'll hardly be any cleanup to that. So I'm going to go ahead and mash these. If you don't have a potato masher, it would be highly recommended to get one. They do come in very handy. What a pretty orange that is. And if you have any browning on your sweet potato like I did, leave that on there after you've peeled it because that actually adds more richness to your sweet potato casserole. If you do your sweet potato casserole this way, you will never go back to the canned sweet potatoes again. There is a huge difference. There, I think that's good enough. I don't like to waste much. That's being stubborn. There we go. So I'm going to set that over there. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to beat these 2 eggs. There we go. And it calls for a half a teaspoon of salt. Here's my half teaspoon. If you're not real steady with your hand, do it, not on top of the sweet potatoes. There we go. And it calls for a quarter cup of butter, which is a half a stick of butter. So I'm going to put that in there. I'm actually going to cut it up a little so it'll be easier to stir all of this up together. There we go. And then it calls for 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Actually, I think before I do that, I'm going to measure out my dry ingredients so I can use the same measuring spoons. It calls for a half of a teaspoon, and this is the half, of ground cinnamon. Here we go. And then a quarter of a teaspoon of ground ginger. And a quarter of a teaspoon of nutmeg. And this, I'll get that later. 1 teaspoon, let me make sure I'm reading this right. Yep. 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then I do a half a teaspoon. Let me put this back on. I use real vanilla extract. There's a big difference between that and the imitation. I put in orange extract. And I do, it calls for, well, it's my recipe for this part of it. You can put anywhere from a half to 1 teaspoon, but I just do the half. You don't want it to be overpowering. People that have never had mine before, when they're eating it, they're going, oh my gosh, what is that that's in there? You know, because it's not overpowering. It's just a hint of it. And this meal that I'm making today, the sides, I'm doing also a cranberry orange relish to go with this dinner, and also a mandarin jello, orange jello salad. So there's going to be a little bit of orange in this as well. And the nutmeg that's in here is going to be in my green bean casserole. So you can see how all of that stuff kind of marries and goes well together. So along with this, I'm also going to be putting in a 1/2 cup of white sugar. And it calls for either 1/4 to 1/2 of a cup of 1/2 and 1/2. I'm going to start with 1/4 and we'll see where we're at. And all you do is you stir this up. You guys have probably never seen one of these. I hadn't. I was just introduced to this a few months back. And I'm not really sure where I saw it originally, but it was on the internet. But I'll tell you, this thing is awesome. It's called a Danish whisk or a Dutch whisk. And I bought it off of Amazon, and I'll tell you, it is just the handiest thing. See how this just goes together? You can use it for making bread. Much better than just a regular whisk because it doesn't get caught inside there.
Very handy, Miss Glow.
Yeah, I mean, it's just awesome.
Looks like it flows through the material smoothly.
Yeah. It's very easy to do whipping up cookies batter as well, if you don't want to pull out your mixer. Now I have a large mixer here, this KitchenAid, but for something like this, it's just much easier for me to just use this. Of course, if I was making a big batch, I would definitely use my KitchenAid, but this is also good for your exercise, for your arms. There. I'm just going to taste it to make sure that the seasonings are right. And I'll probably add the rest of that 1/2 and 1/2 too. That is really good. And just with a hint of that orange. So I'm going to go ahead and pour the rest of this in. And I'm not going to bake, excuse me, bake this until tomorrow. So I picked a dish to put this in. I have a cover for it, and I'm just going to put it in my refrigerator. And the dish I selected, of course, goes right into the oven. Doesn't that look delicious?
It looks good, Miss Glow. It smells good too.
And see how hardly anything stuck to that.
That whisk works pretty good.
Yep, and this is stainless steel and wood.
That's the first time I've seen you use it actually like that, and it looks like it's pretty smooth through the ingredients.
It really is. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in my, and I buttered this dish before we started. In this recipe, you put it in a 9x13. There we go. Spread this out. And you want to kind of spread it out so it's even, because I'm going to be doing a topping to go on this as well. Now this recipe, I originally found it on, it was allrecipes.com. But I've done many changes to it, but I'll tell you, it is a delicious recipe.
Scrumptious.
Everybody always asks for the recipe. Okay, so I went ahead and measured out my flour and everything. This is for the topping. And it's pretty straightforward. There's 3 tablespoons of flour in here, and there is 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar, not the dark, but just the light, regular brown sugar. When you measure your brown sugar, make sure you press it into your measuring cup. That's how you measure brown sugar. So, and see how you can tell how formed that was in there. And I had a few pecans chopped up that I had in my cupboard, so I'm going to go ahead and add those just to use them up. Fortunately, everybody tomorrow that's going to be eating likes nuts. That's not always the case, or someone might be allergic to them. So that's something to think about when you're doing it. And then I'm going to start with 1/2 of this cup. And that's of the old-fashioned oats. And I'm just going to stir this up a little. And then, of course, you've got to add butter. So I'm just going to cut this up. It's softened. Pat it out for a bit. It calls for 1/4 of a cup, which is 1/2 stick. And I'm just going to go ahead and start working this together. Whoops. Kind of messy, isn't it? You see how the flour's still at the bottom. We got to get that incorporated in this as well. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and finish mixing this together, and then before I put it on here, we'll come back so you can see. Hi, well, I got everything combined in this bowl, and this is the topping that's going to go on here, and I'm just going to use my hands to sprinkle it on. So you just sprinkle it on real lightly. So it has the oatmeal, the brown sugar, the flour, the pecans, and of course the butter. This is really a yummy recipe. Here we go. So I just make sure I got it, most of it covered. And then we'll be putting a cover over this to put in the refrigerator. And then tomorrow when I bake this, I will of course take it out and let it set on the counter for about 1/2 an hour before I put it in the oven to bake, and I'll bake it at 350 degrees for about 1/2 an hour. So anyway, I'm so glad you joined us, and have a wonderful evening. Bye.